Welcome, warriors.
Yay!
Thank you so much for joining us yet again for your favorite anxiety podcast.
That's right.
Yes, we are sure of it. We were joined by just the coolest, warmest, most wonderful human for this episode.
Yes.
Such a cool character. His name is Ludeña. And before Abby hops into a little bit of a recap about our chat, let me let you all know a little bit about who Luis is. Luis Ludeña is 27 years old and comes from a very small town in Venezuela. He studied hospitality management as an undergrad and received his MBA in finance from Tiffin University in Ohio. Luis worked at a tennis resort in upstate New York during his summers through college and later found his career as a tennis pro at John McEnroe's Sportime in Roslyn, Long Island. All right. So, Abby, let's hear a little bit about this chat.
Yeah. So I am just so excited for everyone to hear about this episode. I've known Luis for a few years, and I just think he is just so brilliant and so wise. And he just says these little short sentences that leave me just still thinking about him, So Luis starts off his story by sharing how growing up in Venezuela, emotions and feelings weren't really spoken about. Not really at home, not really in society, and how society gave the message that men are tough by not showing emotions. This led him to create a wall around him, keeping his emotions kind of locked in and locked down, and not really giving himself the chance to feel his emotions, process them, or even heal. And he shares about how when he came to the United States, he saw people tended to be a little bit more, sensitive, but in a good way. And how he noticed that men had more permission to share and express their emotions. And by coming to the US, it offered him a new way of experiencing life and what it means to be human. He shares a lot about the different ways that he's learned to, acknowledge and understand more about his emotions, and how finding the balance between logic and emotions and being able to value both sides of being human has really helped him not only in understanding himself more and feeling more connected to himself, but also in his relationships with others. This was just such a heartwarming and inspiring episode. I just absolutely loved connecting with Luis, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear this episode.
Yeah, I agree. Heartwarming is such a great word for it. I felt that as well. And when you just said it, I was like, yes, that really lands for me too. So, warriors, without further ado, here's the show. Welcome back, warrior family.
Yay!
We are so excited to be joined by an awesome guest today. His name is Luis Ludeña. Welcome, Luis.
Thank you so much. Hello, guys.
Yay!
We're so excited that you're here with us. We love chatting with anxiety warriors from all walks of life, and just hearing from each person's individual perspective and special journey that is unique to you. So let's just dive right into your anxiety story. What does or how does anxiety kind of show up in your life?
Yeah.
That is such a good question. I think, of course, to everyone and to a lot of men, it's a little harder to admit the fact that anxiety is in their life, right? But I think it has to do with it being undertaught. So that's the way I grew up. Since I grew up, of course, I wasn't aware of any levels of anxiety because it wasn't really spoken about it at home. So then I grew up the Latin way. That's where I'm from. I'm from Venezuela, right? So back then, it's all about how men have to follow a certain quote. So men don't show emotions and men are tougher, whatever that means. So then that kind of thought process didn't allow me to express the way I felt certain things. So I started to build up a little, let's call it like an emotional wall. So instead of expressing it, I will hold it inside. So the more I held, the more I kind of develop anxiety, right? So I think that's how it first showed up, if I were to think back.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, we talk to people that are, born in America, and men say very similar things here.
Totally.
Yeah, where, right, it's not manly or tough to have or express emotions, right?
Totally.
But I mean, what you just said is like, you still have them even though you're a man, right? And instead of having an outlet for them, you have to hold it all inside. I'm super curious because I don't know that much about Venezuela, right? And I don't know that much about South America, unfortunately. I'm embarrassed to fully admit. But like the messages that you received, were they from your family? Were they from your education in school? Were they from the media like TV? Like, where do you think little boys are learning that they can't show emotions?
I think all of the things that you said, yes, all of them are valid too. But I also think that the whole society is a whole culture.
Mm-hmm.
The culture is really, I want to say, tightly attached to the religion overall, which is the Catholicism. Right now, it's not as much. It's not like people are religious. The religion is within the culture. So people go and do certain things, not because they're religious, but because it's what people do down there.
Yeah.
Like go to church, for example. Maybe they don't believe it, but everybody does it. All their friends do it, and all the sacraments that I did growing up. So kind of, it's more like it's a thing to do down there. It's not to be religious, but it's to be with the culture. So I don't want to hurt anybody by saying this, but I do believe that religion also put a little bit of a strain in men in that aspect when it comes to not showing emotions, because we have to bring the bread home, right? But in order to do that, you have to then be tough and do all these things that a man is required to do so they can bring, I guess, the bread to the table. But we're not animals, are we? I think there are other ways to cope with it. We have evolved from that.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. It's a whole culture. It's not just one factor. It's so many factors that they build up into this kind of, I guess, way to be raised in a little pyramid where the guy is the leader, and then the leader has to be tough, and it all goes down to that.
Right. And that's, it's really interesting just for me, someone who was not raised in religion and someone who did not go to church except for fun one time because my friend was going, right? Like, for me, I do have friends that were raised in the church and male and female. And even the females were like, no, we weren't allowed to talk about emotion. Like, I have a friend who she has kids, and I was teaching kids social emotional learning. And she was like, I want to sign up my kids. Just so you know, like the church has always told me that like talking and learning about emotions is bad. Right. And so you're so right. It affects everyone. So then men are first getting this from their church. Right. And women are too, but then they're also getting it from their society and just how it infiltrates all over.
Yeah, totally.
I have one more follow-up question. And so that is, so you talked about how like you had this emotional wall, and instead of expressing it, you held it all in. And so when was your moment where you're like, oh, wait a second, it's okay to have emotions. It's okay. I can let down some of this wall. I can feel my feelings. Like when did you realize that?
Such a great question. When I came to the US, despite Venezuela and the US being in the same hemisphere, a lot of things work the same. At least a lot of thought process. But the US is indeed ahead in free of thought.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? People are more allowed, and it's more accepted to have, I guess, freedom of speech per se. So coming here, I realized that at the beginning, though, I thought that, wow, people are so sensitive in this country. Totally. Yeah. So then once I started to catch up, I realized that maybe they're not just sensitive. Maybe they just express their feelings. That's why it sounds sensitive to me. But since I never really experienced that, that was my first reaction. So then that's what
Wow.
okay, this is pretty cool. I guess I can fit in. And then when I was 18, when I moved here for college.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I mean, just so much of your story it's inspiring to me, and I feel like I was raised in religion in the church a little bit. I sort of rebelled when I became a teen, and then like
That's the
found my
age.
way back, right? I found my way back a little bit when my mom got cancer a few years back, but then I was still kept being reminded over and over again that how much of religion, organized religion, feels like a cage, right? And like I really related to when you said about the wall, and like as a woman, right, it was sort of like, oh well, women are sensitive, women are emotional, it's okay, right? And so like I wasn't given those messages like you were about like you can't show your emotion, you got to be a leader, you got to be tough, you got to be strong. So I didn't have an emotional wall, but I was taught that like certain things are to be kept quiet. Certain things are for just within our four walls of our home, or just between you and God, or, and so I could relate to that message. And I'm so inspired by the fact that as an 18-year-old, right, you're still in your non fully adult brain yet. And so you're able to look at other women and men here in this country who are like showing you something different. And it's not that one way is wrong or bad and the other way is good and right, but it's just like it offered you a different perspective. And I think that's just what like traveling the world can do,
I
right?
was gonna say that. 100%
I've
agree.
never been to South America either. I'd love to travel there, but like, and as an adult, I'm sure I would, form my own opinion about the things that I observe and witness there. But like, I just can't imagine what it must have been like as a kid, right? When you're just like, you're literally learning everything for the first time, and then still being able to experience what it might be like or what other cultures are like. I'm sort of like, not jealous, but it's like, oh, that's so cool that you were able to get those both perspectives and sort of make informed decisions about the kind of person, the kind of man you want to be as an adult, from having a little bit of both, right? Having the way you were brought up and who you wanted to become, and have both of you, sort of both parts of you, be informing who you are today. Yeah, I just love that.
That's so smart to say. That's so smart. You're just spot on. Just as soon as you experience a different culture at the beginning, you are like hesitant to dive in, but
Yeah.
then it just give you a whole amount of information that you don't even expect, and it's just amazing. Totally
Yeah,
agree
I
with that.
agree. I would have loved to have been immersed in a totally different culture when I was in my late teens like that, just to see how other people live, right?
Right.
And just to
You're,
be able
you're
to get a firmer understanding about why, men from say another country in my face all of a sudden are extremely tough, or they're looking at me like, why is everyone here so sensitive? And if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, what do you mean I'm so sad? This is how I was raised,
right,
right? And
right,
so
right,
like,
right.
and being able to adopt these different parts of yourself and form that understanding from a younger age, I think is awesome and super powerful. So talk to us a little bit about the ways that anxiety shows up in you physically, like in your body, in your mind, in your behaviors, things like that.
Um, First of all, you're never too late to go abroad, Margot. So you don't have to be
Ah,
you don't have to be in your teenage to travel and
that's
experience.
true. Yes. Thank you for
Put that
saying
out
that.
there. um, I think it was more in the behavioral part. I'm not sure how it affected me in the body. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Mhm.
Or my mind. Maybe my mind could be related to the way that I behave myself. I do think that based on readings that I've done, the holding emotions at some point you explode just like a volcano, right?
Mm,
And that's the reason why guys, I'm not saying this is from a book, that's the reason why guys are more violent.
Mm.
And then because like at some point they explode, they hold so much and they explode. That's why they become more physically violent. And besides the conditioning from society.
mm,
But yes, behavior wise, I did realize that it started to just have like so much in my head, like overwhelming feelings.
Mm.
Because I kind of, since I never really confronted those feelings that I had, let's say it doesn't have to be anxiety, it could be in general. Like I never faced a breakup that I have and I never healed up. I just kind of blocked it.
Yeah.
I thought that I would just get rid of it because time heals it, but it kind of just sank in my subconsciousness and never realizing it. And then another breakup and then more information until the cup kind of spills.
Right.
And that's what overwhelming feels like, at least I think from my men's point of view, from never facing those, I guess, closure feelings. And one of them is anxiety, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that like, there's like a light bulb going off in my head, but I'm not like totally sure what the connection is in my mind yet. So I'm going to kind of talk it out. But like, I mean, for me, it's so hard to imagine having so many emotions in me and feeling like I can't express them. Like that sounds horrible, right? Like, because, you know, I have a lot of emotions and I do suppress some and I do hide some and I don't always speak about all of them. But even with all that, I've always expressed and done some, right? You know, and Margot and I talk about like sometimes how we experience light rage, right? Which is connected to our anxiety and how, you know, we've learned how to navigate that now. Like as a kid,
Totally.
I would still express it. I would scream, I would slam doors, I would break stuff. You know, just the other day I was experiencing rage with my phone. I wanted to just break my phone, right? But I spoke it out. I was like, I'm so angry. And like, these are all the violent acts I want to do to my phone. Right. And so
funny.
To imagine like just living a life where you just like compartmentalize it. Like you don't give yourself a chance to process. You don't give yourself a chance to be with the feelings. You don't give yourself a chance to like tell other people about them where they can be like, oh, I have that too. Right. Like that gives me like chills and anxiety. Like just thinking about all the stuff you have to walk with and hold. Right. And nobody even knows it. No one is like, wow, this person is walking, like not just you, but people in general, like, wow, this person's walking around with so much emotional baggage that they don't know how to express, to release, to process. So that's the first thing that I heard. And then, you know, I wonder, and because we know each other, I also kind of know this, but like, I also wonder how it shows up in your behavior with your communication, right? Because if you're not expressing feelings and if you're not even understanding your feelings, how does that impact how you communicate with others?
Right. You're making me say things here. I'm joking. Yeah, totally. That developed into avoidant behaviors.
Yeah.
So I would, because I'm creating this wall, I'll have to, of course, detach from feelings. And that would require some, I guess, avoidant behaviors like not expressing what I'm thinking at the moment, or I guess pushing people away. Yeah, by not just being clear of what I'm experiencing. Like, for example, I wouldn't say, and I still kind of deal with this, I wouldn't say, hey, I need some freaking space. You're too on top of me. Even though you might not be clingy, I still feel the need to run away.
Yeah.
So So I've been working on it, of course, but it is indeed a feeling that I get a lot, especially when I get into relationships.
What an honest admission, right? Just being able to say powerfully, like, I dabble in avoidant behaviors. Like that's a really honest thing to say. And like, not a lot of people, and I want to say maybe men especially, are going to be freely admitting like, yeah, because I held up an emotional wall for so long and I struggled to communicate how I'm feeling outwardly to others, especially in a dating situation, when communication, especially in those early parts of a relationship, are so important, right? Being able to sort of see it for what it is what allows you to work on it, right? Because if you didn't have that awareness, you wouldn't be able to work on it.
Awareness is the key.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it's an under-taught concept. Sorry for interrupting you, Margot.
No, not at all.
It's super under-taught, especially to men. It's really not talked about. I only heard about this 4 years ago, Abby? I don't know. 4 or
I was
5
gonna say,
years
was
ago.
it from Abby?
Yes.
Of course it was. Oh my gosh, that
She
makes
gave
so
me.
much sense now. I'm like,
Now
I'm
you're
like,
connecting the dots.
100%. I mean, like, again, like I knew that you all knew each other, right? But like the fact that you're talking about avoidant attachment, it's just like speaking Abby's language. Is she's attachment style. What is the word? Obsessed.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you got that from your time, your time being connected with her, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Totally.
And he chose to do something with that information, right? Like you can tell people about attachment theory, right? And it's not like the only answer to life, even though I'm obsessed with it. It's because it helped me. It's not like there's so many different things we could focus on and work on, but then that was something that was interesting enough that you decided to pursue and learn more about it to understand some of your behaviors, which is like, that's incredible, right? As opposed to being like, no, I'm fine the way I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I always was interested in the psychology aspect. So that book has so much psychology research. So you do find out a lot about yourself through reading this. So if you don't mind the marketing here, totally recommend everyone to read the.
We've already plugged it like a dozen times on this podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah,
let's
we
just plug
talk
it one
about
more
it.
time.
That's right.
Proof that it's helpful.
We'll have to add it to the show notes. We'll add the book title to the show notes for this episode.
Totally should.
That's so funny. But that's amazing though, that like, look, I'm a big proponent of like, whenever you figure something out about yourself at any stage or part of your life that you're in, it's a win. It's a gift, right? Being able to gain self-awareness at any age is awesome, because then you're just able to have that information to help you figure out what your next steps are going to be. And do I want to change? Do I want to start to think about changing? How do I go about it? Can I start being honest about my feelings tips to people, right? Can I experiment with it? I just love the sort of permission structure that it can allow people to have at any age, which is awesome. All right. So share with us a little bit about what you do now, or in the reflective mode, what you did or still currently do to deal with feelings of anxiety. When you notice your anxiety coming up, either from experiences in your past or day-to-day anxieties, like what are some of the things that you do? What are your go-tos for coping?
I want to recall something from the past. I didn't know that I was already using a way to cope with it. And it was through running. I remember back in the days, running will always make me feel better. Always. I've been running since I was very little, and always would make me feel better. And then later on, I realized that, oh shit, that's one of the reasons. Yeah, because I am just that's a way for me to, it's like an outlet, let's call it. And then when I'm running, I think about all these things. I'm sure you guys have heard about the runner's high.
Yes.
It's so deep. So whenever I finish a run, sometimes I run for like an hour. Sometimes I get lost running because I got so like deep in myself, in my thoughts. Yeah. So running is definitely one of the ways to cope. I totally recommend anyone, whoever likes to run, of course. I know not the majority, but it helps. That's a good way to cope. And after, definitely therapy. I started doing psychology therapy about, I want to say 2 years, because I realized that maybe there is something that I don't know about myself that I can't find in the books. And of course, so much. That was a whole game changer when I started it. So actually, I'm writing notes about this podcast right now, and I'm writing in my psychology book. But I write all my stuff. Reading through these pages hurt, but it's good.
Wow. Yeah, it hurts, but it's good. I love that.
It hurts good.
Yes, hurts so good.
So first of all, we had another male on recently, and he actually was just talking about therapy as well, and how therapy has just been such a game changer for him. He's our age. He's like 41. And how for him, he recently started going to therapy, and the therapist didn't even give him advice or anything, just normalized his experience, and how for him that's been such a game changer. But so I'm sharing that because it's like great that more men are getting therapy, because we all agree, like, everyone needs therapy. Everyone does, right? Everyone can benefit from it. But I really love what you said, how you said, maybe there's something I don't know about myself that I can't find in a book. Yeah. Like, damn, that is so deep. Like, I got like chills when you said that. Like, right. How many things don't we know about ourselves because we're just so accustomed to being ourselves, right? And then we read books and we're like, yeah, that I relate to that and I relate to that. But it's like the individual experience of going to someone that can see you and see your behaviors and your mannerisms and pick up on little things that you say that can make such a huge difference in understanding more of yourself. I love that.
Yeah, of course. I feel like since I started this self-improvement journey, I get so much from anything. I teach kids. I'm a tennis instructor, and sometimes, or almost every day, these 5-year-old kids, 6-year-old kids, are teaching me things that I would have never thought.
Yes,
I would have thought of them, like, things that we forget, like being funny or doing things that are embarrassing because they don't think about it. But we don't do them anymore because we feel like, or we think that's going to be stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Right. So that's an example of it.
Yeah. Kids are just, they don't know how to not be themselves yet.
Right.
They don't know how to conform to the world's expectations yet. Right. They don't know how they don't know what their conditioning is yet. It's such a magical time that, Abby and I both have spent decades working with kids, and it is we're always saying that working with kids, teaching them, mentoring them, whatever, serves us just as much, if not more, than we're serving them. Right. They're reminding us of what it is to be free, to laugh at silly things, to let go easily, or more easily sometimes, to be in the moment. Right.
To be in the moment.
Experience it all. Like, sometimes I teach a lot of toddlers. I see them just screaming and rolling on the floor, and everyone's just kind of like okay with it. And it's like, yeah, because they're a toddler. Like, why isn't it okay for me to do that? Like, if I'm experiencing big emotions, I wish I had the looseness to just let myself feel it, right? Let myself go. I mean, as an adult woman, I wouldn't want to like be scaring people, say in the grocery store, like having a meltdown. But at the same time, it's like, what if we were all just given the permission that kids are to feel their feelings and be their true selves without any judgment?
Yes.
Right. And instead being curious about what might be going on with a fellow human being.
We use alcohol to be able to forget and then do silly things now.
And it's such a powerful thing that you're saying that, because it's like we can really look outside of ourselves for ways of coping, right? For ways of coping with discomfort or anxiety or any kind of big emotion. And it's like, okay, if you enjoy a cocktail here and there, like, that's great. But sometimes that's a slippery slope, right? Like, we recently talked to someone who's been in recovery for 8 years, and up until these past 8 years, he'd never felt anything. He'd never done anything in his life really sober that he could really remember. And so, like, just knowing that, like, we can just learn to, or remember how to look to ourselves to feel good, as opposed to like finding that outside stuff too. So,
to like just numb it or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, Luis, if you could describe your relationship to your anxiety these days, how would you describe it?
Oh my God, much better. I have started to just take things much slower. In the past, I used to always go for what's rational and what makes sense, because that's how I was raised. Don't just make emotional decisions. Don't make emotional decisions, which makes sense, but it kind of lost balance.
Yeah.
Where every decision I would just make it based on what's the smartest thing to do. And so based on that, I started to realize that I never really involve my emotions, and one of them is anxiety. I think anxiety can help you make decisions. For example, if let's say that you have a dilemma to make, and then one of them makes you feel anxious, maybe that's yourself telling you something about that decision, right?
Totally.
So I think anxiety could also help you to determine which decision to make or which path to take.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Right. You can view anxiety kind of as like information or a teacher,
Totally.
and it's like, right, when I'm thinking about a decision, if I notice feeling anxiety, is that good? Right? Is it good? Maybe I should make the decision because I'm feeling a little anxious about it. And it's like a good opportunity to take the risk. Or it's like, oh, wait, is this information that I shouldn't do that? Like, I love that, because the thing is, like, anxiety can be helpful. It can support us in our life. It's not just something that holds us back. And so your relationship to it now is just like this, okay, what is the information it's giving me? And
Exactly,
it allows me to live my life learning from it.
Yeah. And I like what you said about having a better balance between the logical and the emotional, right? Having both of those planes of thought inform your decision making. So good. All right. So if you could go back in time and offer a younger version of yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to him?
Oh my God, so much. Where to start? I think just being able to tell my parents the way that I felt, because it's not like they were super strict. They were very loving, but I guess they would teach, maybe unconscious, that toughness.
Right.
But I think I could have always just said, Father, I'm feeling, I don't know, this is making me too anxious, or this is making me emotional. I need to cry, or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess I never did because I needed to toughen up.
Yeah.
But I don't think I had to. I think in my family was safe enough. And I think a lot of people maybe undervalue that, or they don't realize that, at the end of the day, most likely your family is going to be on your side, and then they want to try to understand you, and they're not going to just kick you off the house.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I would definitely do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I agree with you. Like, sometimes we don't want to tell our family how we're feeling because we're afraid of their judgment or their reactions. And maybe they're not going to respond the best way when we first do it. Right. But we can also give our parents like a chance, or our family a chance to reflect on their own reactions, and then see like, hey, that wasn't helpful. Can we try this again? Right.
Right.
And because I work with a lot of teens, and I know that a lot of teens have been afraid to share stuff with their parents. And for the teens where I know their parents, I'm like, listen, like, your parents love you and they really want to support you. They're going to want to know this is happening in your life. Right. And so I think that's such really good advice, is like, for children, it's so hard to totally be honest with their parents when they want their parents' approval. They don't want to be judged. They want to be, and to take that risk and just speak up more to your parents about your experiences it's beautiful. And
totally. But at the same time, parents need to create that environment, or need to speak out about that. So it's a two-way street.
Totally.
Yes.
Right. Right. And share their emotion. Like, parents have to be a model for it, for sure. Right. And they can take responsibility when they don't react in the right way. Right. They can take their own responsibility and be like, hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Or at least create that safe, like the secure base for us to be able to express and just speak it out loud. Hey, whatever you're feeling, express it, things like that. Yeah. It's the 21st century.
Yes. We're all learning and growing the best we can.
Right.
Yeah. But that's a great bit of advice you would have offered your younger self to maybe experiment with being more vocal in your emotions and seeing what would have come of it. But all we can do is live in the now and go forward with all the things that from our past that informed who we were and who we still continue to be. But I think that's a beautiful piece of advice. Okay. Final question before we have some lightning round fun. We like to call ourselves anxiety warriors here, and we love getting definitions from each one of our warrior guests. So how would you define what it means to be an anxiety warrior? What does that phrase mean to you?
I think if I were to give you an answer right now without really thinking deeper, it'll be more about being aware that anxiety will always be in your life, and just
Mm.
learn how to have a balance. Levels of anxiety are always helpful, but too much of it will hurt you. Too little of it will not help you. So just learning how to balance that. I think if you want to truly be, I guess, an anxiety warrior, just
Mhm.
be able to balance it. I just had a chat actually with my, I guess, my director. He's had so much experience in the tennis environment, and he mentioned that his father was his coach, and he was borderline abusive.
Hmm.
That was back in the 70s, and he said when
Yeah.
you could get away with that shit, right? So then,
Yeah.
so then he was saying that one day his father asked him, "Hey, do you think I am too tough on you?" And then he thought, I don't want to really express and say that yes, you're too tough,
Yeah.
because then he might just give up on me, or he might just stop coaching me or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then he thought, and he said, I don't want you to stop teaching me, but I would like better communication instead of yelling, or instead of making me do 100 push-ups every time that he miss a forehand. So then from that point on, he and his father also, of course, created that secure base for him to express it, and then became a better player, and he went on.
Wow.
So that was super cool to hear, and I wanna do the same thing with all my little high performance athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of pressure on your
So
little
much.
high performance athletes, right? And it's like, how do you motivate them, right? And how do you keep them like high performing, but at the same time valuing their emotional life? And right, so you're like saying there's that balance between the focus on the physical, but then also the focus on the emotional and mental as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes they show up playing like shit, and I don't know why they're playing so bad. But maybe they had a little issue in school, or parents, or whatever. So I think being more empathetic too.
That's the thing about teachers and coaches and mentor. It's like it's a really hard job, right? Like your job sounds really challenging. I know that my job challenges me. I think I could speak for both Abby and myself, right? Working with kids, there's so much pressure on like trying to be the best for them all the time. Mm-hmm. When at the end of the day, what they really need is for us to just be quiet and listen.
Totally.
And that's what's so hard. It's like, I know I have this bias in my own mind. Sometimes I'm like, okay, these parents paid for me to teach their child this lesson, this skill, this activity, this whatever, and I want them to take away something from it. But maybe that kid isn't feeling what I'm putting down, and they're trying to show me with their body language or their behaviors or their communication or whatever, their meltdown. And if I'm not just honoring that and taking it in and trying to pivot based on what they need, right? Am I being the best I can be in this moment for them? And trust me, I've had many days where I've messed up, and and I'm just like, wait, but we have to get through that skill. And okay, just, I know you're tired, but we'll rest in a minute. And it's like, what I'm asking them to do then is not listen to their body. Right. And so like, and trying to be reflective about that after the fact is all we can do.
Right.
And so like, just as a reminder to everyone, all the warriors that are listening that are parents or educators or teachers or mentors in any kind of way, coaches, that all you can do is correct, repair, do what you can after, in the moment or after the fact to help. And that story you shared that I think, was it your boss had shared about
yes.
that conversation that, about with his father. It's just, what an awesome reminder for you and for everyone who heard it. Right. And for him, I'm sure that's an awesome reminder for him all the time on how to show up better every day and do your best. So I love that definition of anxiety warrior, that being balanced.
Yeah.
So love
it.
All right. So Luis, this has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
It is time for some fun. Mm-hmm. We're going to play now in some lightning round. Flashes of lightning coming at you. Okay. So Abby and I are going to go back and forth, and we're going to share a question. You do not have to answer at lightning speed. You can take a pause, think about your answer. and answer when you're ready. And it's just like a handful of fun, get to know you kind of questions. You ready?
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Who's first, me or you, Margot?
I don't know. You want to decide?
You go first.
Same time?
Okay, I'm going same time.
Yeah, same time. Answer at the same
Okay, here we go.
time.
Good luck, Luis. Okay, here we go. So you are a tennis pro coach. If you had to give yourself, and maybe you have this already, if you had to give yourself a name like The Rock or that kind of thing, like what is your like tennis pro name?
Wow, tennis pro name.
Like what do
Never
people
thought
call
of it.
you?
If they were to call me something, it would probably something related to perfectionism, but there is an explanation for that. In tennis, the better your technique, the less likely to get injured. So till the technique is not clean enough, I don't give up. So if they didn't extend the left hand all the way up, if they're too close, again, 100 more, till they get it right. Yes, it's a little overwhelming, but probably something that had to do in the perfectionist side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes sense. There's now a reframe on why perfection would be good. Keeps you safe.
Yes,
Keeps you
exactly. I
safe.
needed to explain that.
And then your name is like the perfectionist.
The
Luis,
perfecter.
the
Or the-
perfectionist.
Sure.
Or the perfector.
Ooh.
The perfecter. I like that one better.
Perfector. I like it. Okay.
Okay, so you talked about liking to run, which you might not know, but Margot and I both are anti-runners. We'll do a nice walk. We'll do a stroll through the park. Brisk walk. Running to both of us gives us anxiety.
Terrible.
The idea of it even. So, all right. So, but you like run for an hour. So, all right.
Yeah.
So what is your like go-to album, artist, type of music? Like if you're running for an hour, what are you listening to?
Wow. It really varies. Really varies. In the summer, I do need more boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
So it'll have to be something related to have you guys heard of Bad Bunny?
Yeah, of course. Yes, you do. You know
Anyways.
Bad Bunny, Abby.
I do.
Bad Bunny, come on.
I think so. You do.
No,
you may not know the
yeah.
name, but you will have
Wait,
heard.
can you give me like a little line from the song?
You know the song I Like It? I said I like it like that with
Okay.
yes. So
Yeah.
he's in that song and in so many other songs. He's performing a role in a Marvel movie.
Oh.
So that's coming up. He's the biggest hit in the Latin world.
Yes.
Okay.
So it have to be something with that, like a reggaeton beat or something like that. But if it's in the winter, it could be something slower. Could be podcast too.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is interesting. I mean, I just can't fathom running ever for
know.
any reason. So listening to a podcast while running is, I think, would be really challenging for me. I mean, running alone would be challenging.
Don't start like that. Don't start with a podcast alone.
I won't start at all.
You're gonna end up passing out.
I mean, I was like, ew, people run in the winter.
I know, when I see those crazy people, to me, they're crazy.
That's me, one of them.
Yes. I love that you choose different sounds though for different seasons. That
Right.
makes sense to me. I do appreciate that aspect of it. I feel like I would be the same way.
Yeah.
Really?
Cool. Okay. Let's see. Question 2. Now I'm just going to throw at you some like choose between this and this. And now I'm going to ask you to pick a little bit quicker. Okay. You don't have to if you really need a moment to think about it. It's fine. But as fast as you can, choose between comedy or drama.
Comedy.
Choose between action and horror.
Oof. Horror.
Okay. Choose between romance and mystery.
Romance.
Choose between coffee or tea.
Tea.
Ice cream or cookies.
Cookies.
Yes. All right, that's it. That was my rapid fire.
That was good.
That one hurt.
Movies and food. Those are the two things that run through my brain all the time.
I'll follow up with food. So you've recently started, Margot and I talk about how like we didn't know how to cook or anything in our 20s, right? And it was like our mid 20s that we learned how to make a hot dog and stuff.
How to make anything.
So
cereal.
Right. So you've been cooking more recently, correct? So what is
Totally.
like your favorite dish to cook for yourself?
Oh, wow. What a great question. For myself, I do like to make variations of pasta, all kind of variations. I could make eggplant pasta,
Ooh.
or I don't know, I could make it with like some bolognese too, meatballs, mushroom, make my own sauce too sometimes.
Yeah. Nice.
For all the people I love to make. Have you heard of arepas? Did you ever try them, Abby?
I think so. Have I? I don't know.
Wait, what was it? Have you heard of what?
Venezuelan meal. It's called arepas.
Oh, arepas. I know arepas.
You have heard them?
Yes.
They're so good. It's cornmeal based.
They are good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like I got those on the streets of New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Likely.
Okay.
Maybe they wouldn't be as good, but you probably could have had them.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I feel like Jackson Heights had some really good, authentic Venezuelan food and
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's New York. There's every kind of food that you could imagine. All right.
Totally.
So my final question. If you could have any ability for just one day, now this ability could be natural or supernatural, meaning that like you could be an expert violinist, or you could be, a professional soccer player, or like whatever it is, a natural ability, but you only had it for the one day, or a supernatural ability, like the ability to fly or see through walls or something like that. So like, which one would it be? A natural ability or supernatural? And then what would that ability be? But you can only have it for 24 hours.
I think it has to be supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Because
what kind
natural,
of ability?
as you said, either fly or being able to transport myself from one place to another.
Yes. Yes.
No traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I hate traffic. I'm New York. I'm in the wrong place.
I know. Long Island traffic.
I know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pick anything like with the brain, because I think I'm gonna overuse it.
That's really good self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's really good self-awareness.
I love that. I feel like the flying would be fun, right? Just to be able to fly. And then you could still go places flying, but like to instantly transport, it's like you could go check out so many places in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right,
like you could spend an hour in like 24 different places.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Because you could get there immediately.
There's no sleep in that day.
No, you wouldn't sleep that day. All right.
Okay. So I guess my last question, what is some advice that's always stuck with you? And it could be something that like someone told you, like a person or like something like, a well-known tennis athlete pro has shared on TV and that stuck with you. But what's something that's like always stuck with you?
Great question again. I always recall my father when he used to say, luck. He would ask, does luck exist? And we would say, yes, no, maybe. He would say, it does exist, but it has two components. It's not magical. It has first, one component is being prepared or being ready, and the other component is being at the right place. For example, if you're prepared, right? If let's say that you've been reading, you've been doing your homework about real estate, and then suddenly you meet someone that is in the real estate business, right? You are prepared. Yeah. So then you could establish a conversation, and then maybe you could take it further. So you were prepared and you were at the right place. Or in the other way around, you woke up at 5 a.m. to go to, I don't know, to play baseball because that's your passion. You were there, you were prepared, and then like a scout saw you. Stuff like that. The rest is just not luck, it's just coincidence. Things happen randomly. If you're prepared and then you're at the right place, things are going to go your way.
Wow. Serendipitous.
I love that. Right? Yes, right. Luck exists, but it has two components to it. And you got to be prepared and the right place. Right. And it's like, that like little bit of magic, even though it's not magical. It's like that, that serendipitous.
It's a coincidence factor.
Yes.
It's a moment. Yeah. People call you lucky, but they don't know how much you went through.
Yeah. I love that. I've never thought about luck having that second component. I've always heard the word luck and thought, well, it's just, you got lucky, right? It's just, the serendipity just kind of happened, but the preparedness ahead of time, right? The organization and potential too is a new layer for me. Yeah. I like that. Thank you. Oh my gosh, this has been such a blast, Luis. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on our show. Tell everyone your win of the week.
Win of the week. I have it right here, actually. This week is the last week of the kids tennis program, right?
Okay.
Because they're also almost done with school. Some of them go to summer camp, whatever. So it's the last week, and I've been buying them munchkins.
Nice.
It's a win, by far a win.
I could
So
just see their faces, just like, yes.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. It's a massive win. It's a massive win.
I love that.
That's
End of the
awesome.
year is so
Whenever-
special.
Yeah.
Whenever I finish here, I'm gonna go there and provide the munchkins. I'm gonna eat some of them too.
Yes.
You deserve it. You
That's
worked
right.
hard all year with them.
You model that it's okay to eat those munchkins.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That they don't need to starve themselves in order to be tennis pros either.
Yeah. So
Of
do you
course,
do you
of
get
course.
new kids over the summer? Or do you get like new groups of kids?
Yes, totally. The summer camp. I'm gonna be running the summer camp in Rosling.
Okay,
So
cool.
we have all kind of ages and also some adult programs. Margot, if you're interested.
There you go.
I have never played tennis.
Oh, really?
Do you know why?
Wow. Why?
It's if you had to get because there's running.
Okay. This is where
You have
and
to
I-
run to hit the tennis ball.
I will play
You have
tennis.
to run.
I'll do that bit of running. It's like spurts. To me,
I will
that's
watch
not
you play the
like-
tennis and I will cheer you on.
I will come to Long Island one day and I will look like a fool playing tennis. And Luis can teach me perfectionism so I don't hurt
The
myself.
perfector.
The perfector. And you
Yep.
can sit on the
There you go.
side.
I will be in a lawn
be the
chair
cheerleader.
with a cocktail.
Yeah. And cheerlead me on for running.
And I'll be like, woo, Abby, go.
Good spurt.
That's
Good-
too funny. That's too
Good
funny.
running
spurt.
grip. I know it didn't sound good, but I was thinking like a burst of running, like a
Yeah.
a sprint. All right.
Sprint, yeah, short
Yeah,
sprint though.
there you go.
If you
Short
consider it, Margot,
sprints.
it's short.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
You know what? I would play like once, but then like immediately I'd be done. Probably.
Okay.
Most likely. I mean, I would think anyway. I've never been into competitive sports. I did dance for a long time, some competition in my college years, but I don't like competition. So not my jam, but I'm trying to be more open these days to new things or
There you
exploring
go.
old things
There
that I
you go.
previously hated. So maybe Abby will come down.
Time.
I'll watch around, and if I feel like I won't be a total ass, maybe I'll play one round.
No, you will be. You will
Oh,
be.
you will be.
And
A
you'll be in
double.
safe
Come on.
company.
That's true. That's true.
Gonna,
All right.
Gonna try not to laugh.
No, you can laugh. It's cool. That'll actually probably help me.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. This has been such a joy. Tell everyone where and how they can connect with you. You on social media? Maybe you want to share a little bit about where people can find you if they're on Long Island for the tennis program that you coach at.
Totally. I'm on social media. Yes, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is LuisiLude. So it's Luisi Lude. Luisi, it was my nickname growing up. My mother used to call me that. So it kind of stuck. She still calls me that. Anyways, that's my Instagram. You can find me also teaching, making a difference in Sportime wrestling. So if you could look it up, it's also One Landing Road. That's the address. So show up and get some tennis going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And get your kids inspired, right?
Please.
And then
Of
get
course,
a
of
private
course.
with Luis yourself. Become your own tennis
Yeah.
pro.
Exactly.
go.
Exactly. I'm gonna be there waiting for everyone. I have a quick question for both of you guys before we head out.
Yeah.
I've thought before about this whole topic of maybe emotional control or emotional intelligence or anything that has to do with emotions. It's not taught in school either. Why is it not, do you guys think?
Why is it not taught in schools?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is that there's slow movement. So there is slow movement. It's social emotional learning. And some schools are bringing that in. But my personal thought on why it's not taught in schools is because it's not valued.
Exactly.
I don't think that the heads up who are in charge of creating and bringing in programs value the emotional aspect of human lives. And they don't understand how when children learn more about their emotions, how it can actually make them do better as students in school.
Right.
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 So that's my thought. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say exactly what you said, Abby. That was my exact thought because it's not valued. But also, I guess just to add to that, it's also about numbers and money. And so like to them,
Money.
unfortunately, kids, schools, the whole shebang is about performing well.
Yeah.
And how do you perform well? You do well on state tests. You do well. You have these performance markers that are total bullshit that, again, just the what society is deemed gives a person, a child value is how well they do on a math test or in an English essay or in these sort of very bias and often not inclusive requirements of schools and of educators, right? And I don't blame necessarily like the heads of every school or certainly not the educators, right? And definitely not the parents and students, but it is a cultural problem too, I think, here in this country. I'm sure in many countries,
Anywhere.
but I can only speak about what our experiences being part of the education system here as students, and then through working in schools as both of us were teachers, and then bringing yoga and mindfulness into schools for kids in more recent years, that it is a slow roll. It's a very slow roll.
Yeah.
But I'm heartened by the improvements that are being made. I feel like the more and more people that are looking at the work that we do, right, as yoga and mindfulness teachers, or just as people who are believe in emotional intelligence, right, and teaching that mental health is just as important as physical health, that, learning how to control your emotional state and understand your emotional state is just as valuable as learning how to add and, where all the states are on the map, right? That like trying to find the balance, as you've brought up so many times in this conversation, between our physical and our emotional and mental self, and being able to bring that to students and give them a more holistic approach to learning. Yeah. So do we wish it was faster and better immediately? Yes. But progress, slow progress is still progress. So
And even
at the same time,
when it's not being like taught in schools, right? Like some schools bring in mindfulness or bring in social emotional learning or bring in yoga. And these are all ways that help children learn about their emotions, themselves, self-awareness. But even when they're not bringing them in, if the teacher models it, like you said at the beginning, how important it is for the grownups to model, then kids are still kind of learning it. When the teacher is like, I'm feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, and they're sharing that language of emotions, like I need to take a moment, I need to take a break, I need to take a breath. Right. Kids are learning it that way too. So I think that kids are still getting the opportunities to learn. And I think that with the younger generations that are getting into teaching, they will model it more and more, whether there's a program or not.
Resources and funding though, right? That's a big barrier still. Yeah. And so, and for the teachers, as you're saying, right, if they're burnt out, they're not going to be able to be their best selves to help kids learn how to not get burnt out. Right. And so that was a very long-winded answer, Louise. I hope that's somewhat helpful.
Yeah. So raising awareness, basically, right? Raising more awareness so people understand that it's also a long process, and it's a long-term process. You can't get results from emotional control the next day, like you can get from math. So that's the tough part, right?
Yeah. Right. It's the constant practice of emotional regulation and labeling and understanding. And so, it's not like, I've learned about this. Now I can, be a master tomorrow. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
We're not masters and we teach this stuff. Which we're
Still
always
messed
saying.
up.
And you're not like you teach tennis, right? But like, I'm sure when you're, showing off a skill, if you don't perform it perfectly, do you just like throw your racket into the wall and storm off? Like, I suppose you could, but what's the message then that the kids are going to receive?
Totally.
And if you were to do that, then you got to come back and be like, wow, I was just really frustrated with myself in that moment, right? You have to sort of verbally reflect why you did that, and so
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
It's an everyday work.
Yes.
And I mean, I'll just say there's hope for future generations, period, because you're a younger generation than us.
Yeah.
And you're doing this work now, right? And you've been doing this
Exactly.
work for a few years. And so I think with each new generation, we learn a little bit younger and a little bit younger. And, how many ever generations from now, like we might be in a better spot with our emotions and our feelings.
Agreed.
You guys are millennials.
Yes.
We are geriatric millennials.
Yeah, we're the old millennials.
We're the old
You're
millennials.
But I'm still the millennial. I'm at the very end, but I'm still
You're
the
the
millennial.
end.
Yeah.
I
You're on the
reached, I
other
don't know how I
end of-
reached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made it.
You're at
The very end.
the younger end of the millennials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Still millennials though.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have that in common.
Right. We definitely share
There you
that
go.
for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
We're the
There you
old
go.
ones. You're the young ones. So
Exactly.
you're giving
Grew
us
up- grew-
old ones hope.
You can call it that way.
Yeah. All right, Luis. Well, thank you so much again for being with us. This was such an incredible joy, so inspiring, and we can't wait for all the warriors to hear it.
Yeah.
It's been
thank
great being
you.
here. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Oh my warriors. What an episode.
Yes.
I mean, I just love the tone that Luis sets,
Mhm.
right? Or that he set in this conversation. Just what a lightheartedness he brought to such a heavy subject.
Yes.
Like I just found myself smiling like the entire time he was speaking.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Exactly. Like
Of course.
verbatim. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I just felt like, again, like with so many of our guests, I felt super seen
Mm-hmm.
in my own journey, even though our experiences were so different, right? We can always continue to find that through line. And that is just the
Yes.
magic of talking about anxiety because, and Louise said it several times throughout this chat, right? It's just like, we're all going to experience anxiety at some point. We
Mhm.
have to learn how to be with it and,
Yes.
and roll with it. And I just feel like I learned so much.
Yes.
I always feel like I learned so much, but I feel like I learned so much from chatting with Luis.
Yeah. Yeah. He has so many like just nuggets of wisdom sprinkled throughout. Like he
Yeah,
said
like
so
quotable
many.
quotes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That
Yeah.
like stuck with me. I was like, write it down, never forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think my first takeaway is just, once again, we've had this conversation over and over again about how little, if at all, anxiety was discussed in our childhoods in any
Yeah.
form, whether it be in the home or in school or from society or in the media. And I just found it so fascinating, the difference between the way we weren't taught versus the
Yeah.
way Luis wasn't taught. Right. It's like we all can agree, or many of us that have chatted on this show, especially you and I, can agree that we were never taught, right, about anxiety or about mental health or about how to talk about it or about how to, express ourselves in a safe and healthy way in order
Yeah.
to learn about how we feel and feel better. But that hearing from Luis about growing up in a totally different place, right? And how the culture kind of informed a lot of why he didn't talk about mental health or anxiety growing up.
Right. Right. And I mean, for me, it was like a little bit of an aha when he said that, like, coming to the US, it was like men had more permission to speak about it, because the way I see it is like, men, you need to speak more about it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, right. But I'm seeing it through my lens of being an American in the US.
Mhm.
And so for me, that was like an aha moment. One of my takeaways is more of just a question. And my question is like, what does religion get by not encouraging people to explore their emotional life? And I
I don't know.
but I've heard that so many different
Yeah.
times, right? And part of being human is having emotions.
Mhm.
And I've heard so many times about people growing up in the church, whichever church it is, where
Yeah.
they were told, no, don't pay attention to your emotion, this and that. And I just wonder, with all of the information we have out there, with the understanding of emotional intelligence and all that, like, what does a religion get by not having their people explore part of their humanness?
Yeah. It's such a great question that I don't know. I certainly don't feel like I know the answer because I also haven't been served by religion myself. So
maybe religion needs to evolve.
Yeah. There's $1 billion idea. Yeah. I mean, that's a powerful reflection, you know? I mean, I definitely, I was going to bring up something about the religion aspect of what he talked about too. But since we already kind of talked about it, I just feel like this whole conversation kept coming back to emotions just over and over again, right? At first it was the emotional wall. Then it was noticing the sensitivity in others in this country after moving here as an 18-year-old. Then it was trying to figure out ways to slowly embody that for himself. And trying to continue to break down the barriers and the cages that we're all put in as boys, as girls, as men, as women, no matter what country you're from, right? And can we all just start behaving like human beings with more sensitivity, with more compassion, with more curiosity? And he said this line, and I feel like I'm going to mess it up, but it was something like feelings are better when they're like expressed, right? Feelings are better when they're shared, or that's my takeaway from something he said.
Yeah.
But it was like, feelings are better when they're shared. I think he was talking about, like, he told stories about, you know, his boss talking to him and how different mentors and teachers in his life, you know, since starting in childhood, but then since living in this country, for the past several years, just have informed, right, how he's evolved through community, right? How much we learn from others. And we've come back to that concept over and over again in all of our chats, just the value of sharing our feelings.
Right. Because how lonely is it when we don't?
Yeah.
Right. That's so lonely. It's so lonely. But when you find the people that you feel you can share them with, you know, or like just in general, right? Like even in that supermarket, it's okay to share your feelings, even if you don't know anyone, right?
Yeah. Totally.
No, I love that. I love that. You know, another thing that he said was when he was talking about deciding to go into therapy, and I'm going to, you know, butcher it, but he said something like, you know, maybe there's something I don't know about myself that I can't find in a book. And like, even
I
now,
know. Quotable moment.
And like, my heart is like bursting. It's like, I mean, first of all, that is just so wise, right? To have that thought, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of helpful things in books.
Sure.
I think many of us can go down that like personal development, self-help loop to like trying to self-correct everything that we think needs to be fixed, healed, changed, you know, developed.
Or learn about ourselves from outside source material.
Yes. As opposed to like, hey, maybe I can get something from therapy that I can't get in books. And it's like, I mean, my takeaway is like, I just hope more people have that thought, right? Like,
yes,
like
I'm grateful for that thought.
Yes. Right. I mean, it really made me think, you know, I've been to therapy and I've been on this self-help, self-development, blah, blah, blah loop for so long. And I've finally been able to put the books down to better myself and just read them for joy. Right.
Yes.
But it was like that moment. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. How much more could I possibly learn about myself just by like seeing someone else who can ask me questions and reflect? And so, I mean, it's an ever evolving and growing and learning journey. And I just, I so valued that comment that he said.
Yes. And I love what you just said too, about like being able to put the books down and just pay, you know, enjoy them for fun, but pay attention, learn how to connect to your own inner knowing. Right. Because it's like, the outer resources are great and sometimes really important also to continue to validate our own experiences, right? Especially if we don't have access to therapy or, you know, or aren't ready, right? Maybe you have access, but you're not ready to explore that potentially. So it's great to be able to use books as a tool, but how often we forget like, but who knows better than me?
Yeah. Right.
And so exploring that in yourself is one of my takeaways too. Right. This isn't really a takeaway, but I'm going to share just before I share my final takeaway. I just love the way Luis talks about his work as a tennis, you know, mentor and teacher and coach. he just sounded, it reminded me of listening to us talk about what we do, and a lot of our guests and their lines of work. It's just like, there's so much joy and light and passion in it, and how he's sort of taking all the amazing things he's learned through his life and his coming to grips with dealing with his emotions. And he's able to then gift that to the younger generation. Like, I think we're all always trying to do. It's just like, how can we help the next group of adults that are coming into their own and into the world to find themselves earlier, even if it's just a day earlier, or to be able to trust their instincts more, or to be able to express their emotions in a safe and healthy way with safe and healthy people. Right. So I love that part of listening to him share. And my final main takeaway from this was just how often he talked about balance.
Yes.
It was like emotions and balance. And he said this thing, it was like, he always learned growing up that like all his decisions should be made rationally and from like the logical part of his brain. And because he never talked about emotions and walled them all up, it's only been more recently, right, in the last few years, that he feels like he's been able to look at things from both sides, logically, rationally, and emotionally, and be able to make a decision based on both of those hemispheres. So another takeaway that I know I needed, it was like, just don't forget about that balance.
Right.
We need
both
both.
Value. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get stuck in the mind, in the brain. Right. Or get stuck in the emotions. Right.
Yes.
And it's like that balance in between.
Yes.
My final takeaway is related to just like knowing Luis, and like, I think he's an incredible human being. I've known him for a number of years, and, I knew a little bit about the avoidance piece that he shared about. But what I will say is that even though he had the like avoidance tendencies and didn't necessarily know how to communicate, he was still extremely emotionally available. I met Luis around the time that like my dad was very ill with cancer, and around the time that I lost my dad from cancer. And Luis and I were newer friends. And when I think about that time, one of the people I think about is Luis and his friendship and his support. And he didn't avoid the discomfort, new friends, someone's having a hard time in their life. Like, that's easy to run away from. It's like, oh, I don't need this drama. Right. Yeah. And he was so emotionally available and emotionally supportive, and would check in on how I was doing. And so my takeaway is, like, sometimes when I joke about like avoidance and the anxious types and stuff, it might sound like I think avoidants are heartless or whatever. And it's not that at all. Like maybe in the dating world, it's different, but as friends, like, even if people have avoidant tendencies, they can still be so emotionally available and so supportive and just so giving of themselves. And I just wanted to highlight that, because we did touch a little bit on avoiding and avoidance. Yeah. And even with those tendencies, he was so available when I needed support. And I just so absolutely adore him because of the time that when I met him and our friendship at that point.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, and it's just like you said, it's so much self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you opened his eyes to a little bit more about himself to help him on his own self-awareness journey. Right. And it's like, and I love that you're taking the time to highlight that even though a person can be in an avoidant style, right, in terms of their attachment style, if you buy into that and if you think that, works for you or whatever, and someone out there listening may have read the book or read about the theories and don't agree or don't think it's the most important thing. And that's fair too. But you can have the avoidant attachment style and also be extremely loving and there for people and supportive. Yes. And I agree, it's funny because when I read the book, the attached book that you're obsessed with, that you had shared with me months ago, I got that impression too. I don't believe it's like the author was like intending on making it sound like if you're an avoidant, it's like you're a terrible human being. Yeah. You're completely devoid of emotion and you don't care about others and it's all about you. And it's hard to not read into it a little bit like that. I will say, just trying not to be judgmental. I did feel like, oh man, I'm so glad this isn't my style. Yeah. Right. And the fact that went through my head.
I'd rather be an anxious and stuff.
Right. Because at least I care a whole fuck ton. Right? Maybe way too much, but still I'd rather be thought of as like caring too much than not caring at all. So like, well, that's my own baggage and bias and whatever. But there isn't anything inherently wrong with being an avoidant attachment. So I'm so glad that you're bringing that up, because I do think it gets a bad rap.
Yes. Right. And nothing fits neatly in a little box, right?
Yes.
Like you can have avoidant tendencies and still be super loving and connected and present and, the
lines are blurry.
Yeah.
So good.
So, yeah. So thank you, Louise. I am so filled up with joy that you joined us on our podcast.
Yes, we are grateful. And we are grateful to all of you warriors who listened. Thank you for being here. As always, we love you so, so much. If you would like to connect with us, jump on over to Instagram. You can find us at Anxiety Warriors Podcast. Or if you'd like to reach out for any reason, you can email us at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Shout out your wins of the week, throw topic ideas at us. What do you want Abby and I to discuss that we haven't yet? And if you're interested in being a guest on our show, let's connect, let's reach out and hear a little bit more about your story so we can help you tell it here on our show. And if you can, please take 2 seconds, smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you tune in. Drop a review. They just help us to grow and continue to get more eyes on our show so we can keep growing with it and growing with all of our warrior fam. And if you don't have any Anxiety Warriors podcast merch, you need to go ahead and remedy that. Like right now, jump in our show notes, click on our Threadless link, and you can shop our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We've got so many cool sayings and logos, Anxiety Warriors podcast merch for you all, on mugs and t-shirts and magnets, stickers and journals and all the things.
Yes.
And we hope you do. Oh, and if I forgot to mention, which I think I did, because I feel like there's a million things I have to say at the end of every episode, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are over there as well, trying to connect with more warriors in more ways.
Yes. And if you don't watch YouTube, maybe you know someone that does.
Yeah.
And send us their way.
Okay. All right, warriors. Thank you for being with us. We love you so much.
Yes. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful we get to do this with you every week.
Yes. Shout out to Ryan. We get to. Till next time, warriors.